If you feel like your guitar solos ramble and don't really go anywhere, then repetition can make an enormous difference. So stay tuned. Hi, James here, and welcome to my Guitar Soloing School series here on YouTube. In lesson 1, we looked at how to give you a solid rhythmic feel, and this is crucially important, so check that lesson out if you haven't seen part 1 in this series yet. In this lesson, we're going to look at another really powerful concept, and this is the idea of using repetition in your solos. Now, repetition is something which we hear in the playing of all the great guitar players, but it's not something which really gets talked about very much. So the aim of this video is to show you some simple ways which you can start to experiment with using repetition in your playing. And I'll tell you, this can really make a big difference to the sound and the musicality of your solos. So that's all coming in this lesson very soon. But first, this video is brought to you by my Noble Music Theory for Guitarists book. This is the quickest and easiest way for any player to nail the essential music theory that all guitar players need to know. Also check out my Blues Soloing for Guitar book series, featuring 10 authentic blues solos complete with analysis, breakdowns, covering all the techniques and knowledge you need to play great sounding blues. They also include backing tracks and video lessons. You can find links to all these books in the description below this video. Okay, back to today's topic, using repetition. Now, I get a lot of emails and comments from people. They say that when they play a solo, they feel like their phrases are just random. They're playing one lick, then they kind of grab another lick and play that, and another lick. And they say that they don't really feel like there's any connection between the licks or the phrases making up their solo. Now, if we think of a great solo, there's kind of a relationship between all the little bits that make it up. When someone plays one phrase, it's kind of related to what came before it, and the one after that is related to what he played then. So this gives the playing a kind of a conversational or kind of almost storytelling vibe. Now, there are a lot of factors that go into making this, but repetition is certainly one of the big ones. We know that using repetition in music works because if you think of any great song, then it's rammed full of repetition. You've got repeated melodies in, say, a chorus. You've got repeated rhythms. You've got repeated words. You've got repeated riffs or chord sequences. And all these factors work together to make it into a recognizable musical sounding song. So if it works for great songwriters, I think it's pretty safe to say that using some repetition in your lead playing can really make a difference to how good your playing sounds. Let's look at some ways you can start to experiment with using repetition in the practice room. Now, these are practice exercises, right? I'm not telling you that the way I'm going to demonstrate playing in a second is how you should play every single guitar solo. The idea is that if you experiment with doing what I show you, it'll start to become a habit to play this way. You'll start to hear and think and play differently, and you'll start to hear more structure and logic and flow creep into your solos naturally. So you're just going to have to trust me on that. I call this first exercise simple repetition. That's exactly what it is. The idea is you simply put on a backing track and you practice using the same phrase over and over the track, leaving a space in between. Now, this is a great place to start because it gets you used to playing an idea and repeating it rather than playing an idea and immediately jumping into your next lick. Now, you're going to hear one thing when I demonstrate this, and this is when I repeat the idea, it's not going to be totally identical every single time, okay? The idea is to make it very like the starting phrase, but it doesn't have to be exactly the same. Just keep it similar enough so that you hear the repetition really strongly. I'm going to demonstrate this for you now over a ballad style chord progression in the key of A minor. hopefully you can hear what I'm talking about in that demonstration there. I kind of started out with this lick down here. And you would have noticed that I just took that and I played it round, kind of pretty similar a few times. Then I just started to see how I could just stretch it ever so slightly, just modify it and create a few little variations on it. So I'm not going too far away from the original lick, but I'm not playing it exactly the same way every time either. Okay, now later on in the solo, I started exploring this idea up here. And I found some different ways to kind of manipulate that phrase. I stretched it into some different licks. They were all pretty similar, but they weren't exactly the same. And this is the idea of the simple repetition exercise, is you kind of latch onto one idea and you thoroughly explore it without changing it too much. Then when you feel like you've kind of exhausted that one, you can go on to another idea and you do the same. And I think you can probably see how this will start to become kind of a habitual way of playing, and you'll start to have this connection between your phrases just when you're improvising. I want to demonstrate the exercise one more time for you now over at 12 bar blues in the key of G. Now I'm going to take this lick as my starting idea. It could be anything, but that's what I'm going to use here. Now, when I play this demonstration, just kind of watch and listen to see some of the ways that I take that phrase and just twist it into something slightly different without losing the identity of the original idea, okay? Now you need to do this yourself, so grab a backing track in whatever style you like and just take a simple short lick like I did and just see if you can just experiment for a few minutes, just remolding it into lots of different ideas which all kind of come from that starting idea. Now it's all right if it starts to sound a bit repetitive after a while. It's an experimentation process, okay? I think my solo a second ago, the blues one, started to sound a bit repetitive too. That's kind of part of the process, so don't worry about that. Dig into this, and then we're going to loosen up the exercise in the next step. The simple repetition exercise is great, but now we can start to loosen things up a little bit. Let's give ourselves a little bit more freedom to kind of break down the original idea into some new licks. And if we're smart about this, we'll still hear a connection between them, but it isn't going to be quite so obvious. Now I'm going to play over my A minor ballad backing again, and I'm going to take the two licks which we've used so far and show you a few different ways that you can use repetition to come up with some new ideas. So the first one was this. And the second one was this. Now, like I said, you can take any licks you like, okay? It really doesn't matter. But it's helpful if you can see these two, because then you can hear a bit more clearly about what I'm doing. Now, a few ideas. The first thing we can do is we can kind of shorten our lick, all right? So we might do something like this. I might state the first lick. Then I might ditch this bit and just play this bit again. So I might have something like this. I'm using the tail end of the lick rather than the whole thing. So it's still repetition, it's just a little bit more subtle. The other thing we could do is like change the ending of the lick. Maybe instead of doing this, I might try doing something like this. So you can see it's still recognizable as being our first lick, just as a bit more of a subtle variation on it. Let me play those two ideas over the track now so that you can hear them. Another thing you can try is taking a core kind of building block of the lick and finding ways to use that. Now if we take the second lick, the one that went like this, if we were to kind of look at that lick and think, what's one of the main notes, the main characters in that lick? Really, it's a bend. So maybe what we do is, instead of repeating the whole lick round and round, we might just take that element of the lick and base ideas around that. So because they've got this strong factor in common, you're still going to hear this kind of unity between the licks, okay? So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to play the original lick round a couple of times, and then you're going to start to hear me break away from the original lick, but I'm still going to be using that bend a lot to really link the phrases together. Let's have a listen to that over the ballad backing track. Can you hear what I'm talking about there? The bend is kind of what's tying all those licks together. Now, as with any of these ideas, after a while you probably start to find you want to move away to a different lick and take something different out of that lick and explore that for a while, just to stop it sounding too samey. But this is a really powerful way to build more structure and unity between the licks in your solo. Another thing you can experiment with doing is repeating the rhythm of the lick, but changing the notes, because the rhythm is a really important part of the identity of the lick. For example, I might have my first lick. I might try doing something like this. So it's the same rhythm, I just played a different lick. I might go. So I'm going to try that now over the backing. You'll hear me play different licks, but I'm going to kind of keep the rhythm the same. So let's check that out. You can hopefully hear there what I'm talking about. Now I added a few little things in there as well, a couple of other short licks. It kind of felt right to do that at the time and just sounded right. But you could hear how I've got this core kind of rhythmic theme, this rhythm which keeps coming back and back and back. And that's what gives a solo a sort of recognizable structure and stops it sounding like a bunch of random licks. So try this idea as well, taking the rhythm of the lick and keeping the rhythm but changing the notes. And it's a really powerful sort of way to use repetition in your playing, as well as some of the other approaches we've already looked at. So that's how you can begin to experiment with using repetition in your playing. And I hope that from watching these concepts and demonstrations today, you can see what a powerful soloing device it is. Check out the third lesson in Guitar Soloing School. That's coming very soon, and that's all going to be on using space. One of the most important things we can do as a player is learn to use space. We're going to be looking at how to do that in that lesson. Remember to check out my Music Theory for Guitarists and Blues Soloing for Guitar book series and video series. You'll find a link to that in the description below this video. Click through and check that out if you're interested. And other than that, best of luck with everything here. Give it a chance to work. Don't practice it once and bin it. Persevere with it. It will make a big difference to your playing. It made a big difference to my playing. I know it'll work for you too. So good luck with that. Have a great day, and I'll look forward to seeing you in lesson 3 in Guitar Soloing School coming very soon. So take care till then, and I'll catch you next time.